Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Tuesday, August 1st, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? Can I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card that we are starting our day off with today is the 10 of Cups in its reversal. So this could be addressing some of those feelings of tower moments that we saw rising up in the cards yesterday. This is addressing blockages or hurdles that may be affecting or impacting your long-term path or your long-term goals going forward from this point. A lot of points of self-correction right now as you navigate some of these hurdles that you are experiencing. Next card we have coming through right now in our 5-card spread is... we have 2 cards coming out for our second cards. We have here our star energy in combination with the judgment card in its reversal. More than anything right now, this will feel a bit different depending on whether you align to feminine or masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. For feminine energy right now, we see that this is moving from a space of authenticity, wanting to have that necessary point of being able to inhabit a space where you can feel vulnerable and open, but also taking some points of correction or reorientation right now, with a lot of ideas right now towards your long-term path and your long-term goals going forward. Feminine energy has been working very much on their internal work right now. This is a lot of internal work that the feminine has been doing right now. And this is also potentially a point of recorrection in one's own assessment of some of the steps that you have taken thus far. A point of allowing yourself to rest, to really observe what you feel is for you versus what you may not necessarily feel is in alignment at this time, but all to help correct some of these hurdles or difficulties that you may be currently feeling or facing or experiencing at this time. For masculine energy right now, what we're really seeing is this is also a moment that if you are working in partnership right now with feminine energy, that you are feeling or experiencing this moment of openness with the feminine energy. This could be even identifying some breakthrough moments that you are experiencing with this energy, but allowing this point to be a point of readjustment and correction, wanting to work with the feminine energy so they're in this space of comfort and authenticity, and allowing for some of these recorrection moments to help overcome any of the hurdles or blockages that we may have seen yesterday with the feminine energy, not necessarily feeling like their heart space is open, all to the correction of identifying what is holding the blockage up in terms of having that unified vision as it relates to the long-term path or goals moving forward from this time. For the masculine and feminine energy that is not in union right now, what we're really seeing is this is going to feel somewhat different. For feminine energy, this is a lot of work that you are doing on the self right now. You are allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You're allowing yourself to be open. You're allowing this to be a point of recorrection as you move forward from this point. But again, a lot of this vulnerability that you may be expressing for yourself at this time may be coming through some of the doubts or the fears that you're experiencing as it relates to your own ability to manifest your goals at this time. This could be some of the tower energy that we saw yesterday coming through, but feminine coming to a space of deeper authenticity as how it relates to them or how they are feeling or impacted due to some of the circumstances that they're currently trying to navigate. While for masculine energy right now, this could be working towards a feminine energy that you are identifying is in this position at this time. You are seeing the feminine energy at this space of openness and vulnerability, overcoming any sort of challenges or trying to navigate some point of recorrection point to come back into contact or union with this energy, but also potentially experiencing some doubts and fears around your own ability to do so at this moment due to the fact that there has been some optics or misalignment in terms of the long-term path going forward between the feminine and masculine here. Third card that we have coming through right now in our 5-card spread for today, center card for today's spread is... we have here our King of Cups, and it's in the upright, which we love to see. So masculine energy, what we did notice yesterday was masculine energy was working from a space of a lot of mastery of the self, standing in their integrity through any circumstances or situations that they may have been feeling some sense of crisis energy around, employing that navigation point with that use of standing in your integrity and potentially even holding off or holding back to a certain degree as you are trying to navigate how you are feeling feeling with a lot of care and concentration towards your long-term goals, your long-term plans, maintaining a point of positivity even in the face of challenging circumstances right now. For masculine energy, what we like to see right now is this is a moment that you are coming into balance with your feminine side or your feminine nature, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. For masculine energy, we can foresee a lot of points right now of coming into emotional balance and being able to articulate that emotional balance, or at least from the internal aspect, really identifying what it is that you're feeling and what it is that you're desiring at this point. For the masculine and feminine energy right now that is in union, this is a collaborative effort that we see that is occurring. Masculine energy is being emotionally open and vulnerable. Feminine energy is moving from a space of simultaneous vulnerability, simultaneous authenticity. And it is this unified aspiration or this unified energy that we see here. Very interesting, because these energies are still very much in alignment at this moment. But we see that this is more of an opening up moment as opposed to yesterday, which was kind of requiring both energies to buckle down. This is the point of allowing some points of reconsideration around plans, around the path moving forward, all to come into better alignment in terms of being able to build that long-term future path or that long-term future goal moving forward. Now, for the feminine and masculine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is a moment that could be feeling like there is a lot of clarification of purpose that is at play right now. Masculine energy is moving from a place of emotional authenticity or effectively trying to express or communicate their emotions at this time, all to hopefully build a point of recorrection with the feminine energy that we see that they are trying to potentially move towards at this time, that you are seeing requires some point of adjustment on. This would speak a lot to some of that Fool energy that we saw in its reversal around the masculine energy trying to come back into union with feminine energy at this moment. There is something here with our star energy that can often still be felt or characterized by the masculine energy as feeling at a bit of a distance. So while you may be identifying that this energy is very open and vulnerable at this time, that they are working from a space of deep authenticity, there may be still feeling like there is some blockage here between you and this energy, masculines, due to the fact that there need to be some points of adjustment as it relates to the connection between you and the feminine energy, and that clarification in terms of whether you have the unified goals or plans as it relates to the long-term path moving forward. While for feminine as well, this is a moment that feminine energy is really standing in their authenticity, in their open emotional expression at this time. As we keep seeing, feminine energy is effectively open and receptive to the masculine energy right now. But if you will recall yesterday, what did we see coming through? We've seen it coming through with the feminine energy for several days now. Feminine energy is coming in a space where they're only effectively being open and receptive to masculine energy that has shown this ability or is reflecting this ability to maintain a level of emotional balance even through difficult situations or circumstances. We saw a lot of those difficult emotional circumstances potentially rising up yesterday with some of that tower energy. Feminine energy was holding back to a certain degree to assess, to try to build a point of understanding as to whether they felt like the masculine energy that is approaching them right now was coming from a place of honesty, openness, authenticity, or if it was moving in a path that was serving its own goals and own purposes without consideration for the feminine. Feminine energy here we see is still in that aspect, but again, allowing for points of recorrection towards masculine energy that shows this ability or degree of maintaining a sense of emotional balance. Though we do still see for the feminine energy, there is some moment right now where there could be masculine energy that is coming towards you with an emotional aspect, showing this degree of emotional balance, but still with some caution or some consideration to be paid as to whether you feel there is that proper alignment in terms of whether the long-term goals are the same at this moment. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is we've got here coming through right now our 4 of Pentacles in its reversal, which we love to see. What we're seeing here, and this is like a nice little break right now in terms of what we've been experiencing in the Venus in retrograde, may have a lot to do with some of that full moon energy that we see is coming in right now. This is that moment of really trying to offer this point of openness, offer this point of not wanting to hold back. For masculine energy right now, this is a moment that the masculine energy is going forward right now, and there expressing your emotions. You're allowing yourself to offer this emotional expression and an openness to situations or circumstances. This could be a lot of that differentiation that we saw in the cards yesterday in terms of the masculine trying to come towards new methods of approaching the feminine right now. While for feminine right now, this is a moment that we are seeing that you yourself are also very open. Feminine energy, as we keep identifying, has been very receptive to masculine energy that is able to show this ability or degree of emotional balance and emotional expression. This is the feminine basically being receptive and open to that right now and allowing it to be a point of reconsideration. Though, again, there is still some anxieties and fears as it relates to the long-term path and goals moving forward and whether there is alignment there. For the masculine and feminine energy that are in partnership right now, these are unified goals. There's a mutual sharing right now. There's a mutual investment in what you are offering to one another. And it is that emotional investment as well as the practical investment, that investment of time, care, consideration, and energy right now that is helping determine and create that path for better alignment as it relates to the long-term path and the long-term goals moving forward. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is saying that there's a lot of receptivity right now between both energies, especially in the realms of honest, open communication. And we're seeing that here. Feminine energy is very open and receptive to it, though maybe potentially holding themselves at a bit of a distance, while masculine energy is in a space right now where you're not only coming into a point of emotional balance at this time, but you're also very much willing to contribute, to show that in some tangible way, as well as emotionally express it at this moment. Fifth card for our 5-card spread for today is we've got our 4 of Wands in its reversal. So this is speaking about building some point of clarity as it relates not only as it relates to the long-term path going forward, but also to the short-term path going forward. There's something really important that's being pointed out here for both masculine and feminine energy that requires some points of adjustment, requires some points of correction. Even for the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, a lot of the conversation that could be happening today could be related to clarification on what the short-term path going forward looks like, as well as the long-term path, allowing for some of these doubts and fears to potentially rise up. But what we appreciate for the energy that is in partnership right now is there's a lot of authenticity coming through as it relates to this in terms of being able to communicate how you feel and what that looks like. Feminine and masculine energy right now are in a space of very large, very significant emotional expression. Feminine energy is feeling very open and authentic and expressive today. Masculine energy is feeling very emotionally balanced. And this is allowing for some difficult conversations to potentially be had to create some point of reconsideration in order to amend or correct for anything that is feeling like there is some uncertainty as it relates to how to move forward in the short term, as well as clarification on where things are going on the long term. A lot of the clarification that we've been seeing in the cards over the last few days as it relates to partnership. While for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is not in partnership, this could have to be a lot of honest conversations that are happening right now to address any setbacks or tangible issues that you may be experiencing around these circumstances or situations that are creating some sense of doubt or an inability to be able to connect both on the short term as it relates to plans and opportunities and the long-term implications of some of the continual momentary or immediate setbacks that you're experiencing. But what we appreciate for both the masculine and the feminine energy, even if you're not in partnership right now, is that you're doing this with a lot of openness and a lot of forthrightness, allowing your concerns to be made apparent and visible, expressing them openly, having and meeting potentially with the other energy to be able to find that meeting point and being able to authentically speak from your heart space. Masculine energy is employing that a lot right now with this balanced emotional energy within them, and feminine is feeling very authentic and emotionally expressive as well, though there is this point of reconsideration that is being brought to the table here, but it also needs to address the challenges, the practical challenges around situations or circumstances that feel like they're creating immediate blockages and potentially even being able to see a short-term or long-term path moving forward from this point. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Cups in its reversal, our star energy, and our Judgment card in its reversal. For feminine energy right now, this is feeling like a moment that there is a point that could be feeling very difficult. There's a lot of emotional energy here, because while the feminine energy is being very open and authentic and expressive at this time, a lot of this openness and authentic expression could be related to the feminine's feelings, doubts, or fears cropping up, the anxieties that they may be placing on not necessarily feeling like they're able to manifest this future for themselves, or anything that they feel is effectively blocking or stopping them at this time. And this is what's allowing the feminine's effectively allowing her to have this sense of openness and honesty with themselves right now, to provide some path of recorrection at this time, to see if they need to do things differently, to see if they need to make any adjustments at this time. With the union with masculine energy, this could be a lot of communication that you are having right now with masculine energy around your own doubts, around your own fears, getting that emotional support as you do. While for the feminine and masculine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is potentially feminine energy. Masculine wants to potentially go towards a feminine energy right now that you are seeing is in this place of wanting to reach them, feeling like they are open, feeling like they are authentic, feeling like they are expressive, but there are hurdles and difficulties around this that the feminine is communicating, potentially as it relates to the long-term path going forward, and asking about whether there is this possibility of clarifying this, or if this is going to be an ongoing hurdle or setback. From feminine energy, this is a lot that you are internally experiencing right now, and potentially connecting to or communicating to those masculine energies that are around you. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our 7 of Pentacles in its reversal. So there is a feeling right now of not necessarily wanting to wait for things, of feeling a point of frustration that's potentially arriving right now around things that you may have put your time and energy into, and wanting to see the immediate results for them. This could even be articulating as a piece of frustration or impatience, particularly from the side of the feminine energy right now. Feminine energy is experiencing right now some feelings of frustration, of not wanting to wait, of feeling like there is this degree that they have waited for things to come to fruition. This is a lot more about the feminine energy communicating about this right now, of wanting to see, again, we've been seeing this in the cards over the last few days, this desire to see on the feminine side right now results for the time and energy that they have put into situations and circumstances right now. Feminine energy is taking that time right now and being very realistic, particularly as it relates to their communication right now, to really identify whether these things are going to be able to yield the productive results that they would ideally desire in the long term, or are these moments that are not necessarily showing that ability to grow. They're showing that there is some limitation, potentially seeing some misalignment right now as it relates to the long-term path going forward that is requiring some point of conversation or redirection. Feminine energy is being very realistic about this right now, and coming from a very authentic place, both within themselves and also in what they're communicating with others right now. For the feminine energy right now that is in partnership with masculine, there's a very emotionally receptive masculine potentially around you right now that is allowing you to do this work at this time. They're helping create that emotional sense of security that is giving you the space to communicate your own doubts and your difficulties and your fears at this time. While for the feminine and masculine energy right now that is not in partnership, this could be a lot of the work the feminine is doing right now to communicate to the masculine their own doubts and fears. The masculine energy for their part, we are seeing, is at a point of emotional balance where they may be very receptive to this. But we're also seeing that the masculine energy, more than anything right now, is working to try to implement changes to help correct the feminine energy that is in this space. How is the masculine energy that is emotionally available offering this right now? Through tangible offers of tangible support, tangible ways of things that can be fixed, ability to show that degree and ability of what they can offer to ease the feminine's own concerns at this moment, versus anything that they feel like they aren't able to do so with. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our 10 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our star energy, in combination with our King of Cups energy. For masculine and feminine energy right now, I messed up. We got our Judgment card in its reversal. This was the card that was with these. For clarification right now, for the masculine and feminine energy that is in union. Masculine and feminine energy that are in union right now are working right now in this state of balance. Masculine energy is being very emotionally open and receptive. Feminine energy is standing in their power at this time. It is allowing a point of adjustment. It is allowing a point of recorrection of energies, redirection, to amend for any spaces or places you feel are creating too many setbacks or too many hurdles at this time. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership at this moment, this is that moment of effectively working towards one another right now to see if there is this point of redirection, to see if there is this possibility of a change of path, a change of purpose, to be able to correct for anything that feels like there is a long-term blockage that is rising to the surface here. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Ace of Swords in its reversal. So this is a moment that feels like there is a surrender that is coming through with a greater sense of victory for both masculine and feminine energy right now. For the masculine and feminine energy that are working in union right now or in partnership, this is a moment that you are allowing some point of redirection. You are making some different choices right now, but it is also an act of letting go, that there's something here that is allowing a process of release, a process of surrender. This openness that we're seeing between the masculine and the feminine energy at this time is one that is helping to carve out a better long-term path going forward. And for the masculine and feminine energy that's in partnership at this moment, this is orienting on what might need to be changed, what might need to be adjusted, and what might need to be released in order to build that better sense of productivity and alignment as you go forward from this point. While for the masculine and the feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is that moment that is helping you experience in the communication that you're having right now, whether this reconsideration point can be reached around the doubts and the fears as it relates to the long-term plans and path moving forward. Or is this something that needs to be released? Is this something that needs to be let go of because the hurdles in terms of coming together in union right now are too great, are too difficult, both in the short term and also in the long term? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Clarification between our King of Cups energy in combination with our Four of Pentacles in its reversal. For masculine energy right now, this is working from a state of deep emotional balance. A lot of security in terms of what it is that you are truly seeking. Feeling this ability right now, not only to feel these emotions that you are experiencing, but also to express them. And also potentially wanting to put some point of like tangibility to your words, to trying to communicate your emotionality through tangible results, to be able to give something that also might not necessarily just be an emotional consideration right now, but almost like finding practical ways to help communicate your own point of emotional balance at this time. For the masculine and the feminine energy that is in partnership right now, this is masculine energy immediately putting in practical work, practical changes to help the feminine energy that is feeling any sense of doubt or fear or anxiety right now as it relates to the short-term and long-term path going forward. While for the masculine energy right now that is not potentially in connection with feminine, this is a masculine energy that is coming forward in an emotional way right now towards feminine, trying to show some degree of wanting to make some points of accommodation. They may even be some commitment right now to practical changes that can be occurred or can be affected right now in these partnerships to help the feminine energy potentially effectively change their mind or come into a reconsideration point related to their own doubts and fears about the short-term and long-term possibility of the partnership itself. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification with our Hangman in its reversal. So what we really like to see here is that both for feminine and masculine energy right now, this is that moment that is creating a sense of easement for both the energies that are in union and the energies that are not. there is this point right now that is looking around situations or circumstances that feel like they have become too problematic, that they're causing too much difficulty. What we see that is happening here is this moment of recalibration, finding that point of easement, discovering those moments or those opportunities that can make things easier as you go forward from this point. And what we appreciate right now for the masculine energy and the feminine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to, is all of this work is to put into something to make things easier as you proceed forward from this point. The masculine energy is putting some expression right now in what they can tangibly change from a point of emotional balance, but also recognizing that there are some circumstances or situations that have grown too difficult for them. There's this emotional point right now of helping to recognize this balance. Masculine energy right now is working from a place of emotional balance to allow for these points of accommodation. We're seeing masculine putting a lot of practical application right now into whatever can be changed, either to create a point of easement to see if something can be adjusted in order for things to get easier, or potentially to recognize whether this is something that needs to be moved away from, because there is some care or orientation in terms of the masculine not being able to offer anything that will allow it to become easier going forward. While for feminine energy right now, this is a moment that you are potentially communicating towards masculine energy, your own degree and desire to find that point of easement as it relates to circumstances or situations. This could even be a lot of communication right now with a very emotionally level or emotionally balanced masculine energy to try to articulate upon the hurdles that you're seeing around the long-term and the short-term path or possibility of that path right now, and really identifying to the masculine energy to see if something can be done to ameliorate that, to make it easier going forward, or if this is something that needs to be released because there is no way to alleviate those blockages. This is a lot of conversation potentially today, but we'll appreciate this because it is productive conversation and it's coming from a space of emotional balance to really just identify what needs to be released right now or what can be repaired. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Four of Wands in its reversal. This is that practical work that is being done right now to clear up any short-term hurdles that are being experienced as it relates to the plans going forward from this point. This is overcoming any of those obstacles as it relates to planning. For both masculine and feminine energy, we see a lot of unified energy here in putting a lot of practical effort in to adjust or correct for anything that is causing any disruption point as it relates to the short-term plans, or maybe even potentially needing to make adjustments to short-term plans that have somehow come into a state of disrepair or uncertainty. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the Wheel of Fortune. So there is something here that's really important that's being identified, even as it relates to the circumstances and situations that you currently find yourself in at this moment. Because even for masculine and feminine energy right now that is working to overcome these hurdles or these difficulties, there is this deeper feeling right now of trying to do so because you feel like there is something here that is karmically aligned, that there may be a lot working in motion right now around these situations or circumstances, that you are looking for that break, you're looking for that easement, you're almost looking for that opportunity that is going to come in, that is going to make things easier as you proceed forward from this point. And there is this moment that is trying to identify whether these struggles are just short-term struggles that'll kind of fade in the larger picture of things between you, or if these are struggles that are going to continue to be in place right now that do not show an ability or degree of having a long-term correction point. For masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, this is why you're able to navigate some of these short-term hurdles that you're experiencing, because there's something here that speaks more about the fact that you recognize that these short-term hurdles are just that in the grander scheme of things, these are just momentary setbacks as you continue on your path forward. You're working in unification to put all practical efforts you can into building those correction points on those short-term problems with that wider eye to the long-term path that you're building going forward. While for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is not in partnership and not in union, this is that point of identification and orientation that you are looking at right now. You are looking at whether there is something that can be tangibly changed in the situations or circumstances that continue to create some sense of tangible setback, tangible hurdle, tangible lack of clarity as it relates to the plans going forward, to see if there's something that can be corrected here, or if this is something that may necessarily be released because there's something here that's just showing that it's not necessarily in alignment to be able to work in any practical way. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Seven of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Ace of Swords in its reversal. For masculine and feminine energy right now, there is this moment of not necessarily wanting to wait too long to navigate these things. There is potentially even a feeling of frustration that's coming through for both energies right now, feeling like you are investing a lot of time and effort into things. And this is the moment that for both masculine and feminine energy right now, there is a lot of care and orientation that is being paid to what you are investing your time, your effort, your energy in right now, to see if it is coming through in the way that you would productively want it to right now, or what potentially needs to be released so that you can see more immediate, tangible correction points, those tangible results for your action to help adjust for any of the setbacks that you're feeling as it relates to your long-term path or your long-term goals going forward. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Pentacles. One of the difficulties that is occurring today that we need to be very cautious of is the fact that we are identifying that there is an abandonment wound that is being triggered at this time for both masculine and feminine energy. There is something here that is pushing against your own wall or allowing yourself to feel some point of frustration, some sense of anxiety. This would speak a lot to that tower moment that we saw coming in yesterday. This tower moment has this potential right now to move a lot of energy into a space of place or reacting simply from a need-based mentality as opposed to one that is based with intentionality. Some of this needs to be effectively reviewed right now for both the masculine and the feminine energy to make sure that you're not necessarily moving away from something simply because an abandonment wound has been triggered. We see here that both feminine and masculine energy right now, there is potentially even a moment right now of recognizing that this is effectively happening at this time, identifying your own potential triggers. But this could feel like some heavy energy here today because something about the circumstances and situations that we find ourselves in right now could be feeling very triggering on a very deep level right now. There is a feeling of wanting to potentially give up on something and let something go simply because it is becoming too hard or it's requiring a lot of work. What I really appreciate right now about this for both the masculine and the feminine energy that is actively experiencing this at this time is there is a recognition that this is occurring. There is an identifiable recognition that is occurring right now, because the bigger question right now that is happening is not necessarily what we're seeing here, whether to walk away from something that is taking time and effort and energy, whether this is the time to surrender, or whether you feel like what's truly happening is that you're pushing up against an abandonment wound that may be encouraging you to want to give up, that may be encouraging you to feel defeated, that may be encouraging you to want to release something. For both the masculine and the feminine energy right now that is experiencing this, this is that moment of open conversation we're seeing to help identify and articulate which one of these is happening. Is this a moment that something needs to be surrendered, or is this the moment that the abandonment wound trigger is making you feel like you need to surrender something, making you feel like you need to let something go because you're not seeing that clarity in terms of what it is that you're investing your time in and growing at this time. How is this going to get corrected right now? It's going to get corrected by seeing if there's something around the long-term goals and the short-term path that can reach a point of tangible adjustment to see more immediate results for what you're investing into it. And what we appreciate about this for both the masculine and feminine energy that's in partnership is this is a point of active support and conversation that you are having now in union to really identify if this is a moment to let something go or if this is something that is just very triggering for both of the energies. Excuse me. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership at this time, this is that moment that you yourself are also identifying that moment. You are feeling this degree of frustration, as I said, impatience, a desire or capacity is coming forward right now that is giving you some kind of like feeling about whether you should let something go or not. But we are appreciating this because what we're seeing here is happening is you're being very careful to try to make sure that this isn't just a momentary gut reaction that you are having right now to a feeling of a setback or a feeling of frustration that's currently happening. You're putting a lot of care and orientation into whether this is something that you truly desire to do at this time, or if this feeling of wanting to kind of surrender at this moment is something that is triggering because the abandonment wound has been triggered. A lot of care and orientation on these optics right now as you proceed forward from this point. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between our Ten of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Hangman energy. So for masculine and feminine energy right now, what we're really identifying is there is this feeling of some point of easement that needs to be brought into a situation or scenario. The bigger question at stake right now is what can be done to ease a difficult situation in practical ways? Is there something that can be practically added to something to make something easier? Or is this a circumstance or situation that is not necessarily showing some point of easement, but is just requiring a surrendering of it because there is this point that it is becoming too difficult a burden to bear at this time? May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Devil energy coming onto the table. So what are we really seeing at this moment for masculine and feminine energy? Masculine and feminine energy, again, the things that we have to be very cautious of at this point is making sure that you're not moving from a space of an abandonment wound being triggered. You're not necessarily moving from a space of allowing unhealthy coping mechanisms, bad modalities of thought, unhealed karmic connections come in and disrupt the path that you're trying to head on at this point. For masculine and feminine energy, what we're seeing right now is there are some heavy triggers that are potentially coming through today. This is heavy energy coming through. We're seeing here that a lot of these discussions or a lot of this emotional communication coming forward at this time could be feeling to a certain degree like it is triggering some of that unhealed energy right now. It's making you effectively have to potentially face some abandonment wounds. It's making you potentially have to face some unhealthy coping mechanisms. There's something here about having to have this point of addressing, and all to the extent of recognizing, again, what needs to be released versus what needs to be adjusted. And some of these conversations might have to do with what is starting to feel like unhealthy or unhealed energy around you at this time. For some of you, this is going to be a lot of internal work that you are doing at this time, recognizing your own self-limiting beliefs, recognizing your own self-limiting thoughts, recognizing your own self-limiting coping mechanisms that sometimes potentially get the better of you, that put you in this state of wanting to surrender. While for the other part of the masculine and feminine energy right now that is in union, this could be mutual conversation about what the energy is around you right now, to really ask what needs to be healed, what is moving in a space that it is positive and productive, versus anything that you feel is causing too much difficulty, causing too many hurdles. This is that point of correction or release that we're seeing. But again, the caution point needs to be that these conversations don't trigger these types of activities, because we've got the combination here today of our Five of Pentacles in combination with the Devil energy. That is some very heavy energy that is potentially coming into play right now as it relates to these conversations that are potentially occurring today, or some of the emotional expression of these setbacks or difficulties. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Hangman in its reversal in combination with our Wheel of Fortune. So again, a moment right now for both masculine and feminine energy that is requiring some point or capacity of release. There is something here that is feeling like it is becoming too difficult. It's becoming too much of a challenge. Masculine and feminine right now that are working in partnership are working right now to try to find that point of easement, or to identify some situations or circumstances that have become too difficult that may need to be released going forward. But again, with that unified sense of purpose and plan to help guide you through any of these momentary setbacks. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is a lot of discussion about whether circumstances and situations can be brought into a space of easement, or are they proving to be too difficult, and for that reason they need to be addressed and they must be looked at to find that point of release, to find that point of easement, to see and to allow this point of like recognizing what feels like it is truly aligned for you at this point, versus anything you feel is just potentially holding you in a difficult position but no longer giving you that deeper insight that you would ideally desire at this time. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Six of Pentacles in its reversal. So this is that moment that could be feeling so difficult around some situations or circumstances right now, because what we're really identifying right now, potentially for all energies, is there is a degree and desire and open expression and communication in terms of what one is able to do or change or amend or adjust right now in circumstances or situations to come into that point of easement. The greater difficulty that is happening right now is there is potentially a limitation. There is potentially a limitation. There's potentially a block here as it relates to what you actually can contribute that would allow something to be easier, that would allow for that point of easement for both masculine and feminine energy right now. For the energy that's working in partnership at this moment, this is that moment that is potentially requiring you to pull away from some circumstances or situations that you feel are not necessarily coming forward in the reciprocal way that you would ideally desire at this point. There is something here about a point of adjustment coming through, being able to identify how that adjustment can be reached, whether that adjustment can be reached, or if not, that's something that potentially needs to be released. If not, that's the other part that we're seeing for partnership, which is that following right now in terms of what feels like it is in alignment, what feels like it is balanced, what feels like it is karmically being adjusted or corrected. There's some energy right now that we're seeing that there is something here that is coming through that is almost an identification point around some situations or circumstances that do feel like there are some deep issues that are coming through right now that both masculine and feminine would like to be able to correct and adjust for, but maybe effectively not being able to see that productive way to do so. But again, allowing their trust in the partnership and the union to give them the faith as they continue forward from this point. While for the masculine and the feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this could feel like a lot more difficult energy, because what we're really identifying around this right now is there is this point in trusting in the path of fate at this time, but recognizing this degree or capacity around situations or circumstances that you feel have become too difficult to bear to a certain extent, but also feeling the frustration that you're not able to find the thing that can be contributed that will make it feel balanced, that will make it feel equal, that almost recognizing that around these situations is helping you come into a point of release while you trust fate's path for you at this moment. So a lot of release energy here. Now, we're starting to hit some of these tricky cards today that I want you guys to be careful about as you proceed forward today, because these two in particular, I don't like seeing in combination with each other at all. The Five of Pentacles in combination with our Devil card energy. This is triggering stuff. Masculine energy is at a place of emotional balance. We want to make sure, masculine energy, that you don't move into a space where this overwhelm leads you into a place where you might start falling into unhealthy coping mechanisms, bad modalities of thought, because what we see here is there's something that is actively triggering, and the same for feminine right now. Recognizing this point where there may potentially be something that feels very triggering today, that challenges you and pushes you towards, as it often does. What happens with the abandonment wound getting triggered? It triggers potentially the unhealthy coping mechanisms, the bad modalities of thought, the unhealed karmic connections to come into play, because you're moving from a place of need instead of a place of intention. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Three of Cups in its reversal. So this is that moment that is really speaking towards paying a lot of consideration right now as it relates to what you feel is in your best interest at this time, versus anything that you are feeling or recognizing is creating too much of a distraction, potentially, especially as it relates to the outside energy that is around you at this time. For both masculine and feminine energy, what we're really identifying at this moment is this path right now of coming into a space of healing, but also recognizing to a certain extent that a lot of this is working through some situations or circumstances that are making you feel somewhat triggered, because there could be, as we've seen with some of this reversed cups energy, some energy around you right now that you don't necessarily feel is aligned towards that highest path or that highest purpose. This is looking a lot at the energy around you at this time to really ask yourself, is it in a space that you feel like it is productive, it is healthy, it is giving it back to you in terms of what you give towards it at this time? Or are these energetic connections that you feel are only potentially servicing their own purposes or serving their own purposes? Are the energies around you right now in alignment with you, or do you feel like they're not necessarily working in collaboration with you? This is what we see with a lot of this energy right now, but I really, really, really want to stress, especially if you have any issues around substances or addiction, to be very careful today not to allow yourself to get triggered, because these are some very not great cards to see in combination right now. I want you to be putting a lot of care and attention into care of the self today, to make sure that a lot of these emotional conversations or setbacks that you're currently experiencing at this time, while an abandonment wound is potentially being triggered, doesn't navigate you into moving into spaces and places that are not helpful to you, nor towards people or energy that you feel is simultaneously or similarly inclined towards those moments. So just be a little careful of that right now. We do see the fact, though, that, again, one of the things we appreciate here with this Three of Cups and its reversal is, for a lot of you, this is that moment that you are recognizing that this is happening. You are recognizing that this is a moment that may potentially often drive you into that type of recklessness or drive you into that type of distraction point. But we do appreciate with this Three of Cups and its reversal that this is recognizing that this is happening and potentially stopping it before it starts. Committing to yourself that you're not going to allow yourself to move into those spaces that may feel easier, but you recognize are not necessarily better for you. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our devil energy in combination with our Six of Pentacles in its reversal. So this is where we're seeing, and we actually appreciate this right now, because what we're really identifying right now is, again, we see that some of this difficult, heavy energy is coming into the fold, having to confront some unhealthy coping mechanisms, some bad modalities of thought, some unhealed karmic connections at this time. But what we appreciate about this is the answer towards those right now is not giving it energy, not reciprocating in kind. This could even result in some moments right now of what you feel is like unhealthy or unsupportive communication coming through at this time. But what we really appreciate in this moment is the fact that you're not giving it any space. You're not giving it any energy. What we appreciate here is the fact that even in this act of this energy coming up towards this moment, you're not letting yourself reciprocate it. You're not letting yourself return it back. You're just kind of cutting it off. You're just blocking it, as it were. You're not giving the things, what we really appreciate here is like, you're not necessarily giving the things or the situations or circumstances that you feel are leading you into unhealthy places, any of that energy that it needs to effectively have that impact. That's that sticking to one's own purposes at this time. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Swords in its reversal. So this is a moment that, again, for the feminine energy right now, we are seeing that there is this moment that you are, for the feminine energy, there's a lot of care and consideration that needs to be paid at this time, because what we're seeing here is there is this moment that you are feeling very vulnerable right now, feminines. There is something here, and this could even be happening because of some of that abandonment wound being triggered, where the feminine energy is effectively recognizing some spaces or places where one of the reasons that you may actually be interpreting as the thing that is a trigger point is when feminine energy gives their energy towards something, doesn't get it back. That could actually be the situation or circumstance that feminine energy is identifying is their trigger. That they recognize that when that occurs, they get put into a state of vulnerability. It creates a space or a place where they feel like these unhealthy coping mechanisms or the bad modalities of thoughts come through. So for feminine energy right now, there's almost an identification of this occurring, and almost potentially even feminine honestly expressing that, honestly being open about their own triggers at this time, what they are identifying or seeing right now as a space that doesn't necessarily feel healthy towards them at this point. Feminine energy is just trying to articulate that in the best way possible, because what we're really seeing here is feminine's effectively pulling her energy from situations or circumstances. She's being very vulnerable and open and communicative about why, which we appreciate. For feminine and masculine energy that is working in partnership right now, this is the feminine energy potentially working with the feminine, this is potentially a masculine energy working with the feminine energy that they recognize or they see or they in some way, shape, or form they feel is in this point of vulnerability. But what we appreciate for the masculine energy right now that is in partnership with feminine is you are doing this work right now to help the feminine energy identify anything that you feel isn't supportive to them, isn't necessarily healthy. And instead, you're working right now with that feminine energy to lend support, not to give back to something that you identify doesn't feel like it's coming from a healthy or productive place. While for the masculine and feminine energy that are not in partnership right now, this could be some of that difficult conversation that we've been seeing occurring or coming towards the feminine and the masculine right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because feminine energy is being very open. Feminine energy is being very expressive. Feminine energy is being very expressive about why they feel there are hurdles around masculine energy at this time, even if the masculine energy is coming forward in an emotionally open way. Because feminine energy is really expressing the fact that feminine energy has some doubts and fears as to whether those situations are going to effectively be reciprocal the way feminine energy wants them to be reciprocal, hence not giving her the clarity she needs in terms of where they're ultimately going, both on the short term and the long term. And this is feminine energy potentially having to express or communicate the fact that the reason she's pulling her energy away is because she doesn't necessarily feel like it's a healthy connection that she's working to build at this time if there isn't that clarity in terms of where it's going to go. While for masculine energy right now, this is again recognizing a moment right now where you may be very emotionally expressive right now towards a feminine energy that you also recognize is open, is receptive to the communication. However, the communication is going to be around whether things can become more reciprocal, whether there can be a balance restored to things, or whether the feminine energy is still in a space where she's looking at some connection with the masculine that has moved into a state where it doesn't feel like it is healthy. It doesn't feel like it is coming from a healthy place. This is all about why this communication right now may get very difficult, because it's talking about all of the hurdles that we have been experiencing and addressing over the retrograde period as it relates to the doubts and the fears rising up in partnership at this time. Even for the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, this is a lot of conversation that needs to be had to make sure there is that deeper sense of alignment. Now, continuing to get clarity on these cards right now, the final card for our five card spread, clarification between our Three of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Queen of Swords in its reversal. So for masculine and feminine energy right now, there is this moment of looking towards the energies around you right now and having this care and orientation in terms of really trying to identify if they feel aligned to your own purposes, or are they necessarily leading towards situations or scenarios that are becoming too difficult, becoming too burdensome. There's a lot of care and orientation right now being paid to looking at the external energies, potentially even towards commitments towards those energies. This could be outside energies that, for them, partnership energy, this could be any energy outside of the partnership in terms of really looking at it to assess whether you feel like it's coming from a place of positivity or if it's just creating a point of distraction. For feminine energy, this is working right now from a point of feeling a lot of vulnerability around this right now. This could be communicating a lot with masculine energy about your own doubts and fears as it relates to outside energy right now, your own doubts and fears as it relates to the circumstances and the path moving forward at this time. Masculine energy is doing everything they can to be emotionally supportive to the feminine energy at this moment, even if these are very triggering conversations. While for the masculine energy right now that is in partnership, this is having to potentially address some doubts or concerns you have with outside energy towards feminine energy that you feel is vulnerable to a certain degree, towards some energy that you may feel that there is some anxieties or doubts or fears around their intentionality at this time. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is a moment that feminine energy, like we said, there's a lot of care and optics right now to the feminine to really try to identify if there's a feeling of alignment to the energies that are around you at this time, but also some anxieties and fears rising to the surface. Feminine energy is feeling very vulnerable right now. They're feeling very authentic, but they're feeling some sense of trepidation around the energy that they're allowing near them at this time, which is allowing all these difficult conversations to come to the surface. For masculine, this could that's not in partnership with feminine right now. This could be that moment that you yourself are feeling some of this from the feminine energy, because the feminine energy could be effectively communicating to you their own doubts and fears as it relates to you and the energy that is around you, or things that they've identified, or the concerns that they have related to some of that energy that they see around you at this time. But I see the fact that they're being very vulnerable and open and communicating those doubts and fears at this moment. Final card for today's spread is Page of Pentacles, tangible expressions to try to prove the opposite of what is being communicated. So again, this is a reinterpretation of the cards. This is the same spread saying pretty much the same exact thing. For the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, masculine energy is literally doing what I just told you they were doing at the top of the spread. Masculine energy is looking at a feminine energy that they see as in a vulnerable place, feeling some concerns around the energy that's around them at this time, and is wanting to put forward a tangible ability or degree to try to lend support in some fashion, to try to show the feminine energy that they are there for them both emotionally, but also they're practically invested in the situation or circumstance. They want to show some way to create a point of easement here in a practical way. While for the feminine energy that's in partnership, this is you receiving that immediate practical support from a masculine that is working in this capacity and this degree. While for the masculine and the feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is feminine energy right now receiving some degree of potential tangibility from a masculine, trying to show that there's something tangible that they can put behind the things that they're saying, right? This is a lot of feminine energy to a certain extent that's kind of saying words mean nothing without action, right? Like this is feminine energy saying words mean nothing without action. This is feminine energy waiting to see that point of action around the masculine right now to help alleviate their own fears and doubts at this time. While for masculine, this is recognizing that such is the case, feeling the expression of the feminine that is articulating this, and trying to put some practical ability in displaying to the feminine that this is not, that their doubts or fears are not founded, and that they are a space where they can feel open and authentic, and that there is this clarity in terms of what that path forward can look like on the long term. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is Five of Wands in its reversal. So more than anything, we are seeing that there is a great degree of care being paid to not wanting to come into a point of conflict. Conflict is obviously not on the menu for today. There's no place here where any of this feels like it needs to move into a point of conflict. Nobody has the energy I'm seeing right now for conflict, especially given these cards. The conflict, if there's been conflict, the conflict is the point. There's some kind of exhaustion point that both masculine and feminine energy are reaching right now as it relates to conflict. Feminine energy is feeling very vulnerable, but feminine energy is probably communicating the vulnerability and the fact that they don't feel like being in a position where they have to fight. While for masculine energy, because feminine clearly does not want to fight, right? Masculine energy right now is potentially at a point where they are trying very hard to maintain a point of emotional balance, which could be difficult because what we're seeing here is the fact that the masculine energy is getting so triggered right now around the circumstances, especially with this Devil card and the Five of Pentacles here, that masculine energy might be raring for a fight after the conversations that are happening, that there's something here that it's like it's getting the masculine energy in a point with the combination of the emotionality coming into play, that it's hard not for the masculine energy to come forward in a way that feels potentially overly aggressive. So this is the challenge point for the masculine energy that's trying to like navigate a way of expressing these things without getting what could be considered too hostile. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it with me. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video with the option of a recording sent to you afterwards. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind when you are booking a reading with me that it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you would like to have that reading. Most importantly, I would like to remind you that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your DMs and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing this reading, and we will do this again tomorrow.